now funding has become short and there are very few options to do what's necessary to get these buildings into condition so they can serve the community for 50 more years. Affordable housing in this area is not adequate. It's very inadequate. And one of the things that I want you to know is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep what we have and improve it. And then also, like I say, continue forward to, as an agency, to serve this low-income population that we take care of. We elected in 2017 to go the route that HUD had offered us, which is called a RAD demonstration. I won't get into the vernacular of that, but it's basically an opportunity to rebuild your projects through a partnership with a private developer to continue on the operation of affordable housing in your community. We've been very, very fortunate to partner up with one of the premier affordable housing developers in the Northeast, Wilder Balter, who has years of experience in affordable housing and construction. And we feel that they're a great marriage with the Glens Falls Housing Authority to be able to apply through the state of New York to get some tax credits and some other funding to take and do an approximately $30 million redevelopment and replacement project for the Housing Authority. Redevelopment in the high rises, as I said to you, they're 100 years old. They don't need to be torn down. They just need to be redeveloped and improved. You know, more ADA compliance, more amenities for the people who live there, and our seniors. We're putting in bigger community rooms. What we're really trying to do there is improve their lives. Many of these people are on nothing but Social Security. They live in good conditions right now. This improvement will put them living in more modern facilities, better heat, like I said, ADA compliances, and so on and so forth. We started this process, the Glens Falls Housing Authority did, back in 2017 with an application to the federal government to be considered for a RAD redevelopment. And here we are, 3 years plus later, heading down the road to a closing on this project. We're extremely excited about it. The community is extremely excited about it. Feedback that we've had from mayors of the Village of Hudson Falls, the mayor of Glens Falls, support that we received from the County Board of Supervisors has been unbelievable. But I think they realize this need to protect what affordable housing we have is very, very necessary. Approximately 10 days ago in this process, and I believe this is due to policy changes at the state as they start to look forward at 2021 budgets. We had expected and had been told that they would take care of this tax exempt on material exemption that we were looking for. And here we were 2.5 weeks out from closing when they advised us that they no longer could do that. It was a devastating blow to us. It's created a $1.4 million shortfall in our budget. Trying to scramble and cover that shortfall in such a short period of time is not feasible. And if we can't cover that shortfall, this 3 years of hard work and getting our residents excited about the fact that they were going to have new living conditions and better buildings and more efficient buildings and more compliant buildings, the letdown would be great. It would be really great. I want to give you a little bit of information about why this project and any affordable housing project is important to our community. We presently have a senior wait list of over 100 applicants. It takes almost a year to get in any of our buildings. We don't like that at all. And the reason that we don't is people to get into senior high-rise buildings and get into senior affordable housing wait till the last minute to do it. They don't say, well, I'll put an application in because I might need to get in a year from now. They put it in now. We're doing everything we can to try to expedite that. And we also, like I say, want to improve our conditions as well. A recent study that I saw that was done in the town of Queensbury showed that Queensbury alone needed an additional 400 affordable housing units to sustain the need of affordable housing in that community, just in the town of Queensbury. And I'm sure the same is true if you reached out into Kingsbury or if you reached out into Chestertown, that there's a need in every location around both of our counties. The Glens Falls Housing Authority has done a yeoman's job in maintaining clean and safe and affordable housing for our residents. Again, like I say, mostly seniors. But our buildings need these improvements. We need more efficient heat. We need the plumbing and heating infrastructure replaced. We need to upgrade ADA compliance systems. We need roofs. We need all of those things. And that's why we really put the people in place here first to be considered. What do we need to protect and improve the housing for the people that we serve? A failure to not have this exemption is going to place this whole project in jeopardy. The exemption has an extremely large impact on both the city and the village, city of Glens Falls and the village of Hudson Falls. Our residents, who are your residents as well, many of you, will be shortchanged as they need this work to protect their homes. These are people's homes. These just aren't affordable housing buildings. These are people's homes that we're talking about. So therefore, we're here today to respectfully request your consideration in granting a sales tax exemption on materials for our redevelopment project. Along with me here today, of course, is Judy Calogero, who many of you know. And we also have Gary Friedland, who's a COO from Wilder Balter, who is our development partner. And they will all be available to answer any technical questions you may have. So I thank you for your time this afternoon, and we'll appreciate your consideration.
Well, thank you for the overview, Bob. I really appreciate that. I think that not only has Warren County recognized that there's a lack of affordable housing in the area, but Washington County has also looked at that. And we have considered what way we could go or potentially go. That hasn't gone very far yet, but we do recognize a need, and we recognize a need that we have a large number of people in need of assistance, both on a temporary basis as well as a permanent basis. Some with changed lifestyles that come in a very short period of time, and their income drops from fairly good income to almost negative through the transition. So there is a real need for that. And I think both our social services communities on both counties really recognize that also. So thank you for the overview, and we're pleased to be able to look to see how we can help you in terms of that. I would like to recognize Judy. I think Judy expressed some, was asked to express some communication. So Judy.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you to the members for having me. I'm the chair of the Glens Falls, the City of Glens Falls IDA, and Mayor Dan Hall asked me to attend today and to speak on his behalf. He's not able to be here. He had a conflict, but he wanted me to let you know how important this project is for the city. This is typically a project I think that the Glens Falls IDA would have taken up and would have gladly taken up, but we don't, as you know, have the authority to enact the sales tax exemption for the property that is in Hudson Falls in Washington County. And because we share the same attorney, Kara, I'm grateful that she brought forward the idea of a strategy to pass this on to you, Dave, and to your team to see if you would take this up. And I'm grateful to her and to all of you for giving it your consideration.
We appreciate it.
In addition to the hat that I wear for the city, and as a city resident, I'm also very involved in the affordable housing business, and I'm the former commissioner of housing for the state of New York under the Pataki administration. I was very involved in public housing redevelopment at that time. And I know I sound a little biased because I live in the city of Glens Falls, but I can tell you, knowing the portfolio of public housing in the state very well, that the conditions of these properties, not just in Glens Falls, but also in Hudson Falls, is in very good shape and very much worthwhile preserving. And as much as these properties need to be updated, and I agree, LaRose Gardens has reached the end of its useful life, and I'm grateful that there's a strategy to replace it and sufficient space to replace it. I still want you to know that this portfolio is in much better condition than much of the other public housing in other parts of the state. And it is truly worthwhile. And when you hear Bob Landry talk about how 1,100 residents are served by this, and so many on a wait list, it's really critical for our communities. And so I'm grateful that you're considering it. I don't fully understand the state's reason for not going forward with a sales tax exemption on this. They are doing it on other projects, but I did learn late last week that they've taken the same action in the city of Albany with a public housing project there, and in the city of Amsterdam. And I'm sure there's others that I'll hear about soon. I think to fill that gap, to correct it, if you're willing to move forward, the mayor and the city of Glens Falls and our IDA team certainly appreciate your consideration. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Just as an aside, in lifetime ago, about 20 years ago, I was involved in affordable housing across the country. And I had the ability to travel to, it was in the software industry, and we did the software to authorize or figure out who was eligible for assistance and what percentage. So I got to visit a lot of the large projects as well as the small projects. And it is extremely important that we take care of these affordable housing projects, because if they disintegrate, the quality of life disintegrates, and the people serviced end up not being able to support their lifestyle and changes caused by that environment of deteriorating housing. So just an aside. So we have received an application from the Glens Falls Housing Authority. I received it Friday. I sent it out to everyone, all the board members to review. Kara, have you had a chance to review this application?
Yeah, I went through it. Yes, I went through the application. Everything looks straightforward and complete to me.
So
I guess what we did have one question about the timing of the construction.
oops, she faded out for a second. I will finish.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
You got to get better internet there.
I know. I think it might be because it's raining so bad. The weather is always stinky when it's really bad when it rains. But you know what my question is about the construction date time.
Next time I'll schedule the meeting when it's not raining for you. How's that?
Yeah.
So her question was,
Please do.
The question was, when do you look to close on this project or for the sales tax abatement process?
The closing is scheduled for the 15th of December this year,
Okay,
with construction starting by mid-January.
okay. So when would you close with the IDA on the sales tax abatement if we went forward?
We'd be looking to close on this, I believe, by the 12th of December, just before the closing.
Okay.
Okay, good to know.
Okay.
It's going to keep our shared attorney busy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Kara, I know we talked about this, but I think we have to get this on record. Under what authority of the Warren Washington IDA do we have to authorize the sales tax abatement?
We have authority to do this under our general municipal law as an economic development benefits that this project has. Also, there's case law that supports a residential housing project. So what I can put together is some information regarding that. so I can share with everyone before our next meeting when we will consider the approval of this project.
Okay. Good.
Am I frozen?
I heard your face is frozen, your voice wasn't,
Right, you can't do that here.
so we heard you.
Okay.
I'd like to ask the board members if any questions for any of the people here on this project. Mr. Biddle?
Chairman, thank you so much. Just a general question. When I read through the prospectus that was sent over to us from the GFHA, it said that 3 of the buildings, I think, are moving from public housing to Section 8. What does that mean? And keep it really, for a farm boy like me, keep it really simple. What's that mean?
And Mike, you're not a farm boy, I know that, so. Greenwich is a booming community. What that basically means is the federal government is still involved in this process. So what they're going to do is they're going to subsidize the rents in the high rises.
Somebody has a mic open.
Getting some feedback from someone?
There we go. Okay, to let you know, Mike, what that is, the funding platform that we have right now from the federal government is they give us an operating subsidy every single year. And they also give us some capital fund money to try to do some construction work that we need to have limited. It's not a lot of money. It's $3,000, $4,000, $100,000 a year. You can't get much of that today. When we leave the public housing platform and go to the affordable housing platform, HUD will give us Section 8 vouchers, but they will be attached to those buildings that we're modernizing. And that's just the form of subsidy to offset the low tenant rents. So it's just a different funding stream coming from HUD.
Great. And that's federal, right? The HUD?
Yes.
Great. Bob, thank you so much. It's always good to hear your voice.
Yep. Nice to see you, Mike.
Mike, let me add to that. The way there's, and we're starting to get a little bit into the weeds on the financing, but the way this is structured is you're bringing private investors into the transaction. And so it doesn't completely take government out. Government will still be there, but the ownership is, a good portion of the ownership is going to be now private. And the rents will continue to be subsidized to help persons who have lower income, and that's through the government. But, and I'm asked this question frequently in other communities where I work, but I see that as a good thing that you're bringing private investors into the transaction.
I do as well. And with that, one of the top 5 challenges that our businesses in Warren and Washington County have, one of the top 5 is affordable housing. And it's not just about moving people into the area for work, it's keeping people here in this area. And that affordable housing is really key for our greater community and for our business community as well. So thank you so much for bringing this forth.
In the city of Glens Falls, I am personally involved as a member of the development team for the Broad Street Commons project, which is across from the Hannaford Market. That is, it's a different project in that it's serving a slightly higher income and a greater range of income. There's 72 units there. The marketing for that property, it's basically 98% complete right now. The marketing was so short, it was barely advertised. There was over 350 applicants for 72 units. We thought it would take 3 months to rent up. It's rented up in 30 days.
Craig, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you explain the public-private partnership here? As I was reading through the documents, I must say I got a little lost with who all is involved here. So when it does shake out, who owns the property, who operates the property, who manages the property?
Gary, do you want to address that?
Sure. This is Gary Friedland. I'm with Wilder Walter. First of all, I want to thank you for moving so quickly and taking the time to talk to us today. we're forming a joint venture with the Housing Authority where we will jointly be managing the new properties. The way these affordable programs work is that there are institutional investors who come in, they provide equity in return for which they get certain federal tax benefits. But the day-to-day operations will be a joint venture between our company, our other partner, and the Housing Authority. And we actually have our own management company, but in this case, we're basically splitting the management responsibilities with the Housing Authority. So, as Bob said, and as you said, Mr. Chairman, the Housing Authority is very well run, which is not always the case. Maybe Judy said it in the world of housing authorities. And in this case, we're happy to partner with them and let them continue to do the day-to-day management on the site, deal with the residents. They've done a very good job explaining the process to the residents and getting them ready for this transition and the work that's going to be done in the buildings.
Thank you for that, Gary.
I have a question.
Yes, Mike.
So this is a rather large construction project. Are you endeavoring to secure local contractors? Because we're giving up sales tax here. So we would certainly like to see that some of the contractors are from upstate, because I realize you guys are downstate. And I do know I insure a lot and bond a lot of contractors. So a flooring contractor reached out to me if I knew who you guys were. So, but is that effort being done? And number two, is this a bonded project because the feds are involved?
Let me try to answer that. The first part of the question is we're absolutely looking for local contractors. Just from a price point of view, paying people from the lower Hudson Valley to go up to Glens Falls will not be cost effective. Our construction company, and we have our own general contractor, has hired a project manager who, I don't know, Bobby, lives 10 minutes outside of Glens Falls,
Right.
and has worked in the Albany Glens Falls area for his whole career. And we are actively soliciting local contractors in the city, but in the immediate surrounding area, to find people that are able to do this job. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Is this a bond? Is the general contractor bonded, or I mean, is it?
Yes.
Yes.
We
Okay.
are providing payment and performance bonds, and actually not because of the federal government, because of our investors and lenders. But yes, project will be fully bonded.
Excellent. That's good news. Thank you so much.
Mr. Caimano?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just to make sure, this is all prevailing wage, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wild?
Thank you, Dave. I'd like to go back to the question that Craig initially started about the ownership structure and how this is going to work, because I'm looking at the document that was provided, and I looked up Regions Bank, and it says that they're a limited partner, but with a 99.98% interest. So I get a little confused about the roles and the responsibilities of how this works, and whether or not we're giving up the equity that we might have, the Glens Falls Housing Authority might have, to basically enable this deal to work. So when the private sector gets together, there's always pressure for revenue and meeting the numbers. And I'm wondering what the control structure is if you start missing the numbers, and what's going to happen. And are we going to start pushing some people out because they have too low of an income? Maybe our seniors. So just conjecture, but I'm just kind of like to get a better sense of how that's going to work.
Well, this is Gary Friedland again. This project, as Bob described, is being partially funded by HUD by providing a new mechanism for subsidizing the tenants. And what that means is right now there's a mechanism where tenants pay basically 30% of their income for rent, and the federal government subsidizes the difference between what they can afford to pay and what it costs to run the building. That will absolutely continue. The seniors will not pay a penny more in rent, and we're receiving funding from the State Housing Finance Agency, and under the relevant regulations and all of the documents we have to sign, we're guaranteeing to keep these units affordable basically forever. So that's the first, the answer to the first part of the structure, especially as relates to the seniors. In terms of the joint venture, what happened is the federal government created a program 20-something or 30-something years ago where they basically provide tax credits to get institutional investors to invest in affordable housing. That's how they generate the money. So what happens is Regions Bank comes into this transaction. They own 99% of it as a limited partner, and then they get to take all these federal tax credits, and they pay us a lot of money, which goes to build the buildings, and that's how the funds are raised. This structure on affordable housing has been the main structure for financing new construction of affordable housing everywhere in the country, and obviously in New York State for the last 30 years. The federal government stopped building low-income housing. They stopped funding housing directly. They do it through this public-private partnership. And we've been at it, this affordable housing, for over 30 years and have done a whole series of these transactions. And Judy can probably explain better than I can, but this structure is what the federal government and the state governments have come up with. We're signing regulatory agreements. We keep all the units affordable. We're signing documents with HUD. We keep all the units affordable. And we as a company guarantee construction completion and operating subsidy if it's necessary.
So if I can do a follow-up, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind. Who maintains the structure then? Is this an ongoing, another 50-year type of agreement that you're going to maintain certain standards in terms of the just the amenities and the I don't know, cleanliness and updates to the building?
Yes, we're going to be regulated. The regulation on those items will shift from the federal government to the state government and the state housing agencies. But we will be regulated. We will have regulatory agreements. They will come out and inspect. The investors inspect from the point of view of protecting their investments. So we're closely scrutinized on all these transactions. And we as a company, as I think Bob said, have been doing this a very long time. And we're very proud of the developments that we manage and the way we treat our residents.
And Mr. Chairman, one more if you don't mind, and hopefully it'll be my last, but what's the opportunity of you guys doing additional projects in our region? Because there's obviously a need.
That's an interesting question. We'd like to do more work in the area. Obviously, partnering with the Housing Authority was a real opportunity for us, which we seized. We're always open to opportunities in the area. We're gearing up a whole construction team to run this. As I think somebody said, it's over $30 million construction on 4 different sites. So we're hiring a whole group of people to work for our construction company based in Glens Falls to handle this. We'd love to do more work in the area. At this point, we haven't identified any projects to pursue because, quite frankly, this one's a very big transaction and we're trying to get it closed in the next couple of weeks.
I will say from my experience, from working with both HUD, USDA, sometimes known as Farmers Home way back then, the regulatory put on each project is very strict, is closely monitored by the federal government and state government to make sure that not only is there concentration on making sure these are truly affordable to citizens, residents, but more importantly, to make sure there's funds set aside for repair, maintenance, such as being done right now on an ongoing basis. And so that's my recollection. I don't think that that has changed over the past 20 years. I think if anything, it's gotten more strict because of the emphasis on affordable housing throughout the country.
Dave, if I could add to that too, I'd just like to add to what folks have already reported, but the minimum term for maintaining this as affordable that the state requires for these projects is 50 years minimum. The state housing agency has their own team of architects and engineers and asset managers that go out to these projects at least once a year to do a site visit. In addition to that, the investors will be there at least once a year doing a site visit. In addition, you have our own local code enforcement. So you have this triple layer of review that's done on these properties to maintain the quality of the housing that's there. And the State Housing Agency also has design guidelines that are being followed both for the new construction as well as the renovation. And they're fairly strict, I might tell you.
And also, complaints by residents are taken very seriously, whether by HUD or by any other state agency, and they're investigated quite thoroughly. So, Mr. Carmino?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. What kind of upheaval in this long construction project will there be for the current people who live there, and what plans are there for that?
Good question.
I mean, Sherry and Bob have been working with the residents for months and months to get them ready. What will happen is we're doing, in the senior buildings, we're doing some common area renovations, community rooms, roofs, outside work. And then we're going to renovate the apartments. And people will move temporarily within the building to another apartment for about 2 weeks while we renovate it floor by floor. Then we'll move people into the new floor, vacate the next floor. So nobody's moving off site. And again, a lot of people have identified they may stay with a relative for a week or two. But Sherry and Bob can address better. I think the residents are not only cooperating, but anxious for this process.
I'm sure they're anxious. I just was wondering, excuse me, I was just wondering how they would take it. Interestingly enough, you're very close to a large hotel. And I wonder if some kind of deal could be made with him in order to temporarily move people in right across the street temporarily while something happens in their apartment. And of course, you guys would have to pay for that.
Nick, Nick, I'd like to just kind of address that. You know, there's one thing here that we haven't really kind of talked about, and I'd just like to put it out there right now. That's COVID-19. It's consumed our lives. And to be very honest with you, we were headed down this road before that happened. And we, prior to having a COVID situation to think about, had decided that the easiest, most convenient thing to do, especially because we're talking about commencing construction in January, is not to have anybody in any of those buildings move off site. We did consider the Queensbury Hotel. We thought about that, but even though you can see it out the windows of Cronin High Rise, we said, well, you still got to get them across there. They're not in the same building. They don't see their friends. There's trouble with mail. There's all of those things. So on the high rise side of it, like I say, boy, the people came first to us. At LaRose Gardens, it's a little different. We're tearing that down through funding that we've got. We actually, right at this moment, all of Cronin or of LaRose Gardens, 50 apartments are vacant. We have moved all of those people out. We paid all of the moving expenses to move them out. We helped them find apartments in the community. And the same will be true when the new project is built and they need to move back. So one of the things that was a top priority of ours in this entire project was how it affects the people who live there right now.
Thank you. I'd like to move forward with this. One request that was in the application that was in the narrative attached to the application was that they would like us to consider looking at our fee and reassessing our fee. I have no issues with that. Normally that our fee is based on the total construction cost, total project cost. In this transaction, they're only looking for us to do the piece of the sales tax abatement. So I do have some ideas on that. And what I would like to do is to be able to sit down with my executive committee on Wednesday in our normal meeting, talk this through, figure out what we feel is we can do to be fair to this. And introduce that and get back to you as soon as possible after that to let you know where we're direction. I just don't want to sit here in this meeting and have a discussion about that, which can take some different roads and take some more time. So if that's okay with you, that's what we'll do. And I would ask for someone to introduce the resolution that was sent to you on Friday for consideration.
I'll move it.
Moved by Nick Camano. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mike Grasso. Within that resolution, there also is the setting of the public hearing. Kara's already noticed that to the paper. I think that we scheduled a public hearing for July 10th at, no, July.
December 11th.
December 11th at 10 o'clock. There was a 10 in there for it. So that's in the resolution. And then we can work on the closing date from there to make their schedule so they can get their financing started in place and get this exciting project done. So having said that, do I have any more discussion? Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Looking through the application, were all the boxes checked, or is there still a little bit more work to be done on that?
When I looked at it, I didn't see anything that needed to be redone. I think that, I think Kathy and her staff did a great job of putting that together in a very short time frame. They started doing this on last Monday, and usually it takes people weeks to put that together, draw the information. So they did an excellent job.
Mr. Chairman, Bob Landry, what kind of, you've been working on this for a long time. What kind of rocks might there be in the road that we will hit, and how can we be ready for them?
You meaning you as an agency or us?
Or all of us?
Right. I think the major one is if we don't cover this shortfall, that this project will die. As I just said to you, we've got a vacant LaRose Gardens that's generating no rent whatsoever. Still has expensive insurance and all that goes along with it. If we don't make a closing in December, there is some discussion about moving it out to March, which adds an additional 3 months on it. I'm very concerned about COVID and its effect on financing of anything as we go into 2021. And that's why we're so anxious to lock this up. I think, Nick, that's the biggest rock that's in the road. If you can't cover that shortfall, we may be dead in the water.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Michael Biddle,
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Campbell,
Yes.
Mike Grasso,
Yes.
Ginny Sullivan,
Yes.
Mike Wild,
Yes.
Nick Caimano,
Yes.
Dave O'Brien.
Yes. Thank you. The other thing we have to do is put in place a meeting on the 11th to do the approval. I'm throwing that out. We have the public hearing at 10 o'clock. We could do the special meeting right after that at 11. Will give us time to get the processing papers signed so they can close on Monday. Is the 14th? Is that 14th or 15th? I don't remember which.
14.
14th. So that would be my suggestion. I asked the board when they could make time for this. It should be a fairly short meeting. Would 11 o'clock on that Friday be acceptable?
On Friday, the 11th? Yeah.
Friday the 11th.
Via Zoom?
Via Zoom.
Yeah.
Dave, how long would it be, do you think?
I can't imagine it's taking more than half an hour. I mean, we'll have all the information. Kara? Can you tell me? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the public hearing will be very long, and then you could have your meeting right after that. So maybe a half hour, 45 minutes tops, I would say.
Is there any chance to do it at, Mr. Chairman, at 11:30 on the 11th?
I'm throwing out times. If 11:30 works for people, I'd be more than glad to do that. Craig, Mike, anyone object to that time period?
I'm good.
Fine.
Good with me.
I'm
Okay,
good.
great. So I'll set the meeting at 11:30 on December 11th. It's a Friday.
Yes.
Thank you. Good. Any other questions on this? And I hope we can come to the resolution of all these issues and get it done for you, because I'd hate to see this project fall apart.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
And
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I bet you this is the fastest the IDA's ever operated on a project.
Yeah.
Could
Mr.
be.
Chairman, I do have one question.
Yes, Greg.
Just for clarification then, Glens Falls Housing Authority will have what percentage of ownership in this when it's all said and done? Right
They're
now,
gonna own,
they're the owners, correct? So,
yeah, they will own 50% of the managing general partner of the development,
Okay.
which effectively gives us joint control. The investors are generally passive. The only time they would be involved is if somebody made a terrible mistake, which in 30 years we've never done. So basically, we will be running the development jointly with the Housing Authority for the next number of decades.
Thank you. Any other questions? I thank all of you for attending. If no other questions, we're done with this segment of the meeting, and we had a very short couple things to cover after this.
Mr. Chairman, it's Mike again. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about the sales tax benefit that they're going to do and receive. And do you know how much that is? I'm looking through the documents. I can't get a sense of what that is.
1.5 million.
It's 1.5 million out of a
Am I right?
out of a $70 million project.
Correct.
So, typically there's contingencies built into every project to try to make it work. If this weren't to go through, and you say that the project would die, but what about, cutting back the scope on a couple of things? Maybe not quite as nice cabinets or not quite as nice flooring to get to that $1 million, 1.5. Has that been considered?
We've worked for a long time to get the scope right, not to spend too much, but to do what we need to do to preserve the building and improve the tenant's quality of life. The transaction is 70 million, but the construction is 34, because there's a lot of soft costs and financing costs and all those other things involved. Is it theoretically possible that we could do it? Yes. Would we hate to do it and be concerned that we're not doing the job that we should be doing and the commitment that Bob and Sherry have made to their residents? Yes, that would concern me greatly. I would hate to have to walk around trying to lop off north of $1 million at this job at this stage. We also have the state and the investors, and we've shown them a scope of work and said this is what's needed. And it would be very difficult at this time in this transaction to go back to them and say, we thought about it and we're going to cut out $1.5 million out of the budget and we're going to lop these 20 work items off the list. That would create all kinds of problems that I'm not sure we could solve.
I hate to be a pain in the neck, and I'm not going to vote no on this at all, but Mike has a point there. As I heard it, the soft costs are about twice the hard cost. Maybe there's something there.
I think
To follow up.
No, I don't want to screw up the work.
Yeah.
I do want to tell you that Mayor Hall and I looked at the numbers, and looking at the 2% tax benefit on the 1.4 million or approximate 1.4 million, and we looked at what's the likelihood that all those materials would be purchased in the city. Not likely. At the end of the day, we were just running the numbers ourselves, not consulting with the development team, but we saw the benefit to the community on the tax side to be de minimis, and that the benefit far outweighed any benefit on the tax side.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, time is of the essence. I would suggest that your committee, the executive committee, meet, but you invite the entire board. So if you had to move right along, you could.
the entire board's always invited to executive meetings.
Right? Not only just to invite to sit there, but could we then have a meeting right afterwards and do everything in one sitting, if you will?
No, because we have to have the public hearing before we can approve the project.
You're right. Okay, thank you.
And I think that based on Mike's question, the other thing is all the finances been put in place. And to go back and to change the financing, they would have to go back and retool everything to meet that need. And they might lose some support and some financing that's already in place.
Okay.
So, good. Well, thank you, everyone. I want to move on to the next item.
Thank you, Dave.
Next item is that we did
Thank you.
receive a $90,000 grant from
Was that,
National Grid. And I want to remind everyone that all our grants, USDA, National Grid, and MBRC are reimbursement grants. So we will have to get the funding in place to take care of that. I have talked to the Glens Falls National about potentially starting the ability to bond it. Interest rates are very low, so we will continue this discussion later. There's some other changes we will start to discuss within the executive meeting that we need to consider. So that was that. The other thing I had in place, I don't see a lot of supervisors joining us, but if I can share my screen, I have a presentation I put together just to bring people up to where we were. And again, I'm not getting any details. I just want to go to surface level of where we're at, just to make sure we're keeping people abreast with what's going on. In terms of CHC, the Champlain Hudson Power Express, also known as TDI, we have not received their application yet. We are awaiting their application. We should get it soon. There are 3 agreements to be reached. The first is the pilot agreement, which the IDA is concerned with. And then there are community packages and road agreements that are also need to be reached. In terms of this, I think there's some significant benefits to looking at that. So those are 3 agreements. I don't want to get in detail about those at this point. We have put together what we call negotiating committees, or committees to work with negotiating party. Is that from the IDA, we're working with Dave O'Brien, Mike Biddle, Ally White, and potentially one more in terms of the structure to go forward. On the town side, we're responsible for community benefits and for community benefits and the road agreements. It's sort of being led by Darrell Wilson, with Dana Hogan being as part of that. So subsequently, with the legal negotiation, I will tell you that the IDA is working to have a letter of engagement on the recommendation of CARA is to hire Joseph Scott as one of the attorneys. With a company this size, we could benefit from Hudson Russ experience and their ability to go over paperwork and help the forms out. And we're also looking to sort of coordinate through all this with some of the other IDAs. We sort of, Joe represents Albany, Clinton County, and we have talked about coordinating with other counties to make sure that we're all on the same page and not asking for too much, but we're sort of in the same line. We're also being assisted by Ellen Smith, who is FTA Consulting, who is a 508 area code number that someone asked me about. And her background is going to be extremely important to this. Areas of concern is disruption from both town and IDA, is disruption of services, traffic flows, demands on already burdened town services, legal fees, fees for construction cost review, shoulder-to-shoulder paving of road surfaces and disturbed, return all disturbed property to original approved state, use of local labor and contractors with an available skill set, procure use of local materials for construction, capital investments and improvements, and enhanced government services. And with some of these, Darrell is taking the lead on that. Do you want to fill anything else in on that, Darrell?
No, thanks, Dave. I think you covered the basics, unless there's any questions of me.
We are having ongoing meetings with our attorney staff to prepare for this. And we will release details when we can in the manner in which we can, in a communication process which doesn't break our quorum rules, our attorney-client privileges, our executive session materials, but we will find a communication material vehicle to take in there. Concerns from the IDA is communications, both towns and IDA, external communications also, public relations, I guess it's called. Accurate construction costs, have a viable pilot agreement, and agreements protecting the interests of municipalities and the IDA. So that was sort of the bullet points I wanted to cover. I had invited some other town supervisors to keep up, but we will share this with them. Is there any questions or comments people would like to ask at this point?
Mr. Chairman, Craig here.
Yes.
Timeline?
We're still waiting for the timeline. The timeline will kick off from the IDA standpoint upon receipt of application.
Okay.
At our next meeting, we are going to be started talking about should we get started, when we get started, and what the process is. So.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, Dave, on the timeline question, New York has granted approval for construction up here to begin as early as second quarter of 2021. So somewhere in between now and second quarter of 2021 is when we need to expect all this to come to fruition in terms of agreement.
Okay. So there are some time constraints and we have some sort of mind schedules, but we need to discuss this with our negotiating team to make sure we have the process in place. We'd like to sort of be first or last, whichever comes true, but I think the people that set the standard are going to be the ones who are potentially going to benefit the most from this. So we'll see. Ellen, do you have anything to add or questions or?
Yeah, I'm here, Dave. I would just say, the project's been in process for over 10 years. If you go to the New York State Department of Public Service dockets, you can see the docket number starts in 10. That was 2010. There's more than 4,600 documents that have been filed thus far with the Public Service Commission alone. That doesn't include any of the documents filed with the Department of Energy and the EPA and others. There is an EPA approval in place for the project. There is Public Service Commission contingent approval to start construction. As Daryl mentioned, the contingency is that there are no Canadian approvals in place yet, and there's no offtake agreements on the project yet. So there's still some additional hurdles, but definitely CHPE and their development arm, TDI, really does want to start initial work in Q1, with the caveat saying that if they don't get the final approvals, they will basically clean up the mess they started to make. And, we'll put all the protections in place that are possible to make sure that happens. But yeah, it's a big project, 1,200 megawatts, 360 miles or so, and very tough, difficult project, if you ask me, not just under Champlain and through our county, but along the railroad right away and then down through Westchester is definitely, I would call it the largest utility transmission project in the country, and certainly the largest one in a very long time. So in some ways exciting for all of us, even though we don't get direct benefits.
Thank you, Ellen. I think this is a big project. It has a lot of meaning and potential benefit for the communities. And we'll be looking at how we structure that. And we hope to get through this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Bill.
Hi, yeah, I'd also like to, first of all, thank Ellen because her background and knowledge is invaluable. And Mr. Wilson, Supervisor Wilson, has a wonderful skill set and background to be able to attack this project from representing the project as a whole on our side, but also the municipality. So thank you for that. Also very happy that we've been able to reach out for some other background for some other communities that have already been through this and done this. So we're doing our homework behind the scenes. And I'd also like to say how impressed I am with Joe Scott and Kara reaching out to Joe for his knowledge, his background. And I really believe that if we can get more counties working together on this, just like we're getting the internal Washington County municipalities to work together, I think strength in numbers is going to help the project as a whole, but help us tremendously.
I do have a disclosure to make, and I'd really like to make the disclosure, even though it doesn't benefit me at all. Joe Scott's sister is married to my brother. I'd just like to get that on front. We don't see each other very often, probably once in 30 years we see each other. But I just want to make that disclosure so there's no one coming back behind the scenes saying, well, you didn't mention that. I mentioned this up front, just for full disclosure and appreciation of what Joe can do for us. He is a dynamic individual, and he is a super great negotiator, as is Kara. But I think with the team we put together, we can really succeed in getting what we're looking for. And I really like to thank Ellen, because she has proved to be an outstanding research person in finding this information about TDI and what they've done, and reached out to other projects they've been involved in with other utilities. So,
Mr. Chairman, despite your disclosure, I still like Joe Scott a lot. Thank you.
Okay.
My disclosure is I work with attorneys all day long, every day on many projects, and he is definitely very, very good. I've been very impressed so far.
Yeah. Kara wouldn't have led us that way unless he was very good. So anything other questions for the TDI project? And I got one other thing I got to come back to. All right, closed. I'd like to get a resolution to set the meeting for December 11th, 11:30. So could I have someone make that resolution, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that.
Moved by
I'll
Mike,
second.
seconded by Craig. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I do have some comments about this, but not related to the public hearing. So I support the public hearing, but I get very nervous when someone comes to me and says, I need to get a decision from you right away. And if I don't get the decision I'm looking for, the project's not going to go forward. Especially when you think about what Nick brought up in terms of the result of my questioning, that there's $30 million in soft costs associated with this project. To me, that's half of the total project costs. So who's making that money? Is the bank getting all its money back right away?
So there is one thing I noticed is like $12 to $15 million of the soft cost was acquisition of property.
Yeah.
So that was $12 to $15 million. So I don't remember the exact number. I did see it someplace in the documentation I read through. And then we have the interest cost for the bonds on top of that. So it doesn't surprise me that there is. I mean, Kara can probably address that better than I can because she's involved on the other side too.
Well, one thing I just want to point out is that, part of your application includes a question and your consideration of any project, regardless if it's this one or any, your review of criteria is to be that if the project doesn't, your benefits are required to help the project move forward. One of the questions on the application is if the IDA didn't get involved, would this project still move forward? So the purpose of the IDA is to help make that connection for certain projects. And in other projects, we've had lenders say, well, we can only make this project work if there's a pilot in place and things of that nature. So that is in general municipal law. It's also in your project application as well.
It says no. As I recall, it says, no, it won't go through if we don't do it. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All applicants are supposed to make a showing that they can't do this project without you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got a motion on the floor. Let's clear that up if we're going to get into this.
Okay. I've got a second. All
Yes.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So in the application, land and building acquisition is $13.2 million. Out of that, the other soft costs, professional services, etc., we can get from them an explanation what the other soft costs or professional services, etc., $22 million. Pardon?
if I can interrupt, who's getting that $13 million for the property acquisition? Do we know?
Whoever
Is
they're.
that Authority?
The
Or
housing
is it going
authority.
to going to the
I
state?
would imagine, we can get clarification on that, but it's my understanding that's part of the joint venture piece that he spoke about.
And that would be the Glens Falls Housing Authority equity. That.
Yeah, they've created this new entity for this particular project, this partnership.
I will get clarification. I'll have that probably by Wednesday, I hope. And then clarification on the $22 million in soft cost professional services, et cetera, et cetera.
So, this is just me asking the question. I have no experience with, HUD projects at all. And maybe this is normal, but it seems a little exorbitant.
Yeah, actually, the numbers, Mike Wild, were 34 and 70. So it's more than twice. That's what he called. That's the numbers I heard, 34 and 70. That's more than twice.
Yeah, on the application, the building construction and the renovations come to 35,000, let's say.
Million.
Million. We're out.
35 million out of a total $70 million package. Another 13 million is for the land or building acquisition, as the chairman had said. So the soft costs they list are 22 million.
Yeah, okay.
And if memory serves me, collective bonds are based on a percentage, Kara?
Yeah, part of that soft cost is probably their bond issuance fee that they're closing on. We can ask them to break that down for us. That would include all their legal, engineering, any bond issuance costs they have for this project.
I don't want to be a horse's pursuit, but remember I asked about rocks in the road. I just assume that not be a rock in the road that we have to explain.
Okay. So we'll get the answers to those questions.
Thank you.
Have them dive into some detail, Dave, because if
Pardon?
I'm going to want to follow the money.
This is the federal government. How the hell could he ever follow the money?
Well, that's true.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Any other business come before the committee? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Be well.